it is. There it is. Ocean in view. Ocean in view. Oh, the joy. That's what he writes in the journal. Oh, the joy. Ocean in view. The mighty Pacific Ocean that we've been wanting to find for so long. It's now finally in view.
All the hard work, all the challenges, all the hardship, everything that was sacrificed, we made it.
Of course, it wasn't the ocean. It was actually the estuary to the mighty Pacific Ocean, where Astoria, Oregon is right now.
When they say that they have arrived at the ocean or that we see the ocean, things like that, I think it's hard for me to discount that because they were in a place with salt water and huge waves. They knew they were near the ocean. They just wanted to go an extra 10 miles, but they were here during one of the stormiest Novembers in history.
It was a place, a disappointing place. It was a place of difficulty. It was dismal niche to them. They looked at it and they spent the better part of 3 weeks there just stuck.
They were experiencing huge waves, driving rain, low temperatures, and they just couldn't physically get their boats away from shore. They were pinned in a small cove at a time when they really wanted to make that final inch of the expedition.
I'm sure they were homesick. They were miserable by that point because they had, basically their clothes had basically rotted off. They're eating nothing but salmon when they're out at that point.
Just what are we going to do? We don't know. We can't move forward. We can't move backwards. Storms were just coming in. It was a terrible, terrible thing. It was terrible. And it was cold and it was wet and it was just miserable. Dismal niche.
The next main stop after Dismal Niche was called Station Camp. It was a base camp from which they explored this area on foot. Station Camp represented a place where they were no longer stuck in a cove, where they could kind of dry stuff out. They had more physical space at Station Camp for their canoes and for their stuff. And it was a place where they could send out exploring parties to come to places like Cape Disappointment.
Cape Disappointment was named because of a British explorer who couldn't get his ship into that estuary due to the big water, the bar that was underneath. There's a sandy bar underneath there, and it was just too big, and he just couldn't get his ship over that. So he called it Cape Disappointment. It was at Cape Disappointment that Lewis and Clark looked out there, and they both saw the Pacific Ocean for the first time.
When they finally reached the West Coast, and the group is trying to decide which part of the Columbia River are we going to spend the winter on? Are we going to spend it on the north side or the south side? The viewpoint of everybody is solicited, including Sacagawea's and including York's.
It was pretty clear to them that the north side of the river did not have what they needed, namely a source of red meat. So Lewis and Clark put the question to the party, sort of a multiple choice question of where should we spend the winter, and they recorded the votes of the expedition members.
In this little minor experiment, this little microcosm of democracy, they are equal members in every respect to the expedition because they will be allowed to vote as an individual member. York, 60 years before an African-American male would be allowed to vote. Sacagawea, 100 years before an American Indian woman, or a woman for that matter, would be allowed to vote. They are representing democracy at the very edge of the United States.
To say that Sacagawea and York were not equals by any means, and I don't want that to be misconstrued, but they were treated with respect for the position that they were in, and I think the ultimate sign of that is their voice being heard for where their next camp after this was going to be built.
To a T, absolutely, 100%. Everybody said, let's go to Oregon. Let's go back across the river.
This is when they went from the north side of the Columbia to the south side, and they built Fort Clatsop.
By the time they get to Clatsop, they've been gone for over 2 years.
They finally find their fort and start building their fort first week in December 6th, around that time. December 25th, they're going to move in. They like to move in on Christmas. They did the same thing at Fort Clatsop. They move in on Christmas Day.
There, they basically set up what was essentially a moccasin factory. They made 330 some odd pairs of moccasins. They repaired clothing, put up supplies for the return trip, and even sent a smaller detachment to the coast to make salt.
The thing that's remarkable about that Fort Clatsop experience was day in, day out, rain. Rain, rain, rain. It rained almost every single day. In fact, there were only 12 days where it did not rain at all in the time they were there. Only 6 days where they saw sun.
For more information or to become involved with the Lewis and Clark Trail Alliance, visit lewisandclark.org. To learn more about Shenandoah University and the Shenandoah Center for Immersive Learning, visit su.edu/skill.